Hello and welcome. In this tutorial, I'm going to walk you through the Gantt chart settings in XER Reader. The Gantt chart is a crucial part of project scheduling, and with these settings, we can fully customize how it looks and functions. So let's get started. First, I have an XER file loaded in the application. Now, let's go to the top right of the toolbar and click on Gantt Setting. As soon as I click, the Gantt Setting dialog opens up. This dialog allows us to manage everything related to the Gantt chart, from modifying the timeline to adjusting bar styles, applying conditional formatting, and even controlling how parent-child links appear. If you want to customize how your schedule is displayed, this is the place to do it. Now, at the top of this dialog, you'll notice there are 3 tabs. The main tab controls visibility settings and link preferences. The bar tab allows us to add, remove, hide, or show bars and apply conditional formatting. The Timeline tab lets us customize the Gantt timeline's display units and formatting. For now, let's focus on the main tab. The first setting here is Show Gantt Chart. This option controls whether the Gantt chart is displayed or hidden. Right now, it's checked, meaning the Gantt chart is visible. Let's uncheck it and hit Apply. As soon as I do that, the entire Gantt chart disappears. Let's undo this change by rechecking Show Gantt Chart and applying again. The Gantt chart is now back. Next, we have Show Text. This setting controls the text labels of bar in the Gantt chart. If you look at the bars, you'll see text displaying activity names. Let's see what happens when we uncheck Show Text and hit Apply. And just like that, all the text inside the Gantt chart disappears. Now let's undo that change. I'll recheck the option and click Apply again, and now the text is back. Now let's move on to Link Preference. This section controls how the links between tasks appear in the Gantt chart. We have 4 types of links: Start to Finish, Start to Start, Finish to Start, and Finish to Finish. Each of these link types can be customized in 2 ways, by visibility and by color. The first column in this table lets us toggle link visibility, and the third column allows us to choose a color for each link type. Let's try changing the color of the Start to Finish link. I'll click on the color box, select green, and hit Apply. Now let's scroll through the Gantt chart and check if there's any Start to Finish link visible. It looks like there aren't any SF links in this project, so let's try changing the Finish to Start link color instead. I'll reopen the settings, change the Finish to Start link color to pink, and hit Apply. This time, we can see that all Finish to Start links in the Gantt chart have turned pink. Now, let's see how we can hide specific links. I'll go back to the Gantt settings, uncheck the visibility box for Finish to Start, and hit Apply. And just like that, all Finish to Start links have disappeared from the Gantt chart. Now let's look at the next section called When to Show Links. Here we have 3 options. 1. When both points are visible. 2. When at least one point is visible. 3. Don't show. By default, the second option is selected, which means links remain visible even if only one of their connected activities is in the visible area. Let's test the first option. I'll select When both points are visible and click Apply. Now let's take a look at this pink Finish to Start link connecting the activity Approval for Shop Drawings to setting out the raft foundations. Right now, both points of this link are in the visible area, so the link is fully visible. But watch what happens when I scroll the chart so that one of its points moves out of view. As soon as one of the connected activities is out of the visible area, the link disappears completely. If I scroll back to bring both points into view again, the link reappears. That's how the When Both Points Are Visible option works. Now let's try the Don't Show option. I'll go back to the Gantt settings, select Don't Show, and hit Apply. Now, all the Gantt chart links have disappeared completely, and that's all. Now we know how to customize Gantt chart main setting in XER Reader. We explored how to show or hide the Gantt chart, toggle text visibility, modify link colors, and control when links are displayed. These settings give us full control over how the Gantt chart looks and functions. Try experimenting with these options in your own projects and see how they help you visualize your schedule more effectively. All right, let's continue with the next Gantt chart settings, which is the bar setting, where we can customize how bars are displayed in the Gantt chart. First, I'll reset the main tab settings back to default so we're starting fresh. Now, let's switch over to the bar tab. As soon as I click on it, we can see a completely different set of options. Let's go through them one by one. At the top, we have a table list that keeps a record of all currently available, created, visible, or hidden bars in the Gantt chart. This is where we can add or remove bars based on our needs. Now let's break down what each column in this table does. The first column, Index, simply shows the index number of the bar. The next column, Show, contains checkboxes that allow us to show or hide individual bars. If the box is checked, the bar will be visible in the Gantt chart. If it's unchecked, that specific bar will be hidden. Then, we have the Name column, where we can set a custom name for a bar. Next, we have the Time Scale column, which is a drop-down menu that lets us select a time scale for the bar. Time scale determines where the bar is placed in the Gantt chart. For example, the current bar time scale is mapped to the start and end dates of tasks. This means the task bars will be displayed based on their start and end dates in the Gantt chart. We can also create custom timescales using the Timescale button on the right panel, but we'll go deeper into that in the next part of video. Now, let's move on to the Filter column. This determines where a bar will be drawn in the Gantt chart. For example, if the Task filter is selected, then the first bar will only be drawn for tasks. There are multiple filter options available, like All Activities, which means there is no filter applied, Task filter, Milestone filter, and more. We can even create custom filters based on our needs, but we'll also explore that in the next part of video. Now let's move to the next section of the Bar tab, which is Shape Style. This section allows us to control the shape of the bars in the Gantt chart. Every bar has 3 shape properties: Start Shape, the shape at the beginning of the bar; Middle Shape, the main part of the bar; End Shape, the shape at the end of the bar. We can also assign different colors to each of these 3 positions. Let's test this by changing the color of the middle section of the first bar, which is Task, currently selected in the list. I'll click on the color box for the middle shape, select pink, and hit Apply. And just like that, all task bars in the Gantt chart have turned pink. Now let's change the color of milestones, which are currently C as orange. I'll reopen the Gantt settings, select the milestone row in the table, and change the start shape color to green and the end shape color to green as well. Now I'll click Apply, and there we go. The milestones in the Gantt chart have turned green. Next, let's explore the Text Style section. This setting allows us to display text for the bars in the Gantt chart. Every bar can have 3 text positions: left, middle, and right. Left text appears before the bar starts. Middle text appears in the middle of the bar. Right text appears after the bar ends. Let's set a text for the middle position of the first bar task. I'll click on the drop-down for middle text, select Activity Status, and hit Apply. And there we have it. The activity status text is now displayed inside the task bars in the Gantt chart. We've now covered how to show or hide bars, customize shapes and colors, and text for bars in the Gantt chart. All right, let's continue with the next Gantt chart settings, which is the Timeline setting. This tab allows us to customize the time scale of the Gantt chart, making it easier to adjust how project schedules' timeline are displayed for Gantt chart. First, before making any changes, I'll reset the bar tab settings back to default so we have a clean starting point. Now, let's switch over to the Timeline tab. As soon as I click on it, we can see the settings related to the 3 timeline rows in the Gantt chart. At the top, we have separate settings for each row: top row, middle row, and bottom row. These rows control how the timescale is displayed in the Gantt chart, and we can choose to show all 3, only 2, or just 1. Each row has 3 drop-down options. The unit drop-down lets us choose the time unit, such as week, year, or month. The format drop-down controls how the selected time unit is displayed. For example, whether a year appears as 2024 or just 24, or whether a month is shown as January or just JAN. The Align drop-down lets us position the text for each unit, choosing between left, center, or right alignment. Now, let's look at the Show drop-down. This drop-down controls how many timeline rows are visible. We have 3 options to choose from. First is All. This enables all the 3 rows, top, middle, and bottom. Second is Middle and Bottom Row. This is the default setting, where only the middle and bottom rows are displayed. And finally, third option is Bottom Row Only. This setting hides the top and middle rows, leaving only the bottom row visible. Right now, the default option is selected, which is Middle and Bottom Row. Let's change this to All option and see what happens. I'll select All option for drop-down, and as soon as I do, the top row becomes visible in the preview below. Now let's try selecting third option, Bottom Row Only, and just like that, only the bottom row remains visible in the preview. Finally, I'll switch it back to second option, Middle and Bottom Row, the default setting. Below this, we have the Size slider, which allows us to increase or decrease the size of the timeline. Let's test this. I'll drag the slider to increase the size, and as you can see, the timeline expands in the preview. Now I'll decrease it again, and the timeline shrinks back. Now, let's modify the middle row settings to see how it updates the Gantt chart timeline. Right now, the unit for the middle row is set to week. Let's change that. I'll click on the unit drop-down, select month, and now we're using months instead of weeks for the middle row. Next, let's adjust the format. I'll click on the format drop-down and select full month name instead of the short abbreviation. This means instead of short month name, we'll now see full month name displayed in the timeline. Finally, let's change the alignment. Currently, it's set to left, but I'll click on the alignment drop-down and select center so that the text is centered inside each time unit block. Now that everything is set, let's hit apply. And just like that, the Gantt chart timeline updates based on our new settings. Now let's try one more adjustment. I'll reopen the Gantt settings and switch the Show drop-down to first option, which is All, so that all 3 rows are visible. Next, I'll change the bottom row unit from day to week so that the bottom timeline blocks become weekly segments instead of daily ones. Lastly, I'll slightly increase the size of the timeline by dragging the Size slider, and then I'll hit Apply. As soon as I do that, we can see the timeline update with the new settings. And that's all. Now we know how to customize the timeline in the Gantt chart, including adjusting row visibility, changing time units and formats, aligning text, and resizing the timeline.